Okay, well, I hope you've been if you've been following the Digital Craft Festival over the weekend. Hope you've enjoyed our events and live chats. And this is the last sort of live, other than I'm going to be doing a brief roundup at the end of the day for the Digital Craft Festival on Instagram. It's a last live Zoom event, and I'm really pleased to welcome Xanthe Gladstone today from the Good Life Society, and some good ideas talking about living with the seasons. Welcome, Xanthe.
Hello.
Hello. Because you're based in Hawarden in Flintshire, in North Wales, and sometimes up in North Scotland with your family. And I came to the Good Life Experience a couple of years ago. Absolutely, I've loved. Well, yeah, I can't say last year, because the year before, nothing happened last year. But during lockdown, I've become increasingly interested in improving my physical and mental health. And I follow you on Instagram, and I've followed some of the recipes that you've done on your channel, because you do a lot about food and cooking, and that's why I sort of invited you to talk to me today. So I guess one question first was, what is the Good Life Society, and how would you describe your role within it?
So I think just before we came on properly, we were talking about how the Good Life Society is like this whole group of different things going on, because there are lots of different arms to what we do. But I think the kind of main thing is what was the festival, which is now turning into Camp Good Life, which usually happened in September and is now going back to September, and is a festival of craft, which is very relevant, food, the outdoors, like amazing outdoor activities, amazing feasts, amazing demos by chefs, music, like so much more. And I think why that festival's really incredible is it's given loads of people, similarly to your audience, I imagine, the space to really meet like-minded people, and do activities and have the type of fun that you can't really have anywhere else. So I think it also sort of brought my interest in food really out when I started helping with the festival. It helped me kind of be around all these amazing chefs and really get to know food in a really interesting way.
Because food plays a big part of the Good Life Experience as it was, isn't it? Because you do the sort of feasts, and then there's the cooking, a lot of cooking over fires, and then so really dramatic events.
There's an amazing big fire pit so we do chef demos, and all of the chefs, they come and they do their demos, but they are only allowed to cook over the fire. So it's really interesting because you see them do stuff that you might not necessarily see them do in another setting, and it just lets the ingredients sing in a different way to how it would in a normal cooking demo, because you have to it's a really different type of cooking. So
and is that a stipulation of the actual event then? Is that something that you sort of say, this is how you're going to be cooking? Yeah.
You can come, but you got to cook on the fire.
That's fantastic. So so was the young Xanthe, I mean, you're not entirely old now, Xanthe, I'm going to be honest, but were you always interested in food?
I think I was always interested in food. I think in a more subtle way when I was younger. I was always we're quite a foodie family. Both my parents are great cooks, and we were always, our like a lot of other children, like our fun weekend activity was to make cakes and be in the kitchen and get involved. And as we've all grown older, we've still all been very much involved in like the day-to-day cooking at home. But I think when I was at university, I just started to, get more involved in that interest. I sort of, it came from the channel of being really interested in like vegetables and where they came from, and that's kind of obviously the alley I've gone down now. But I became I've always loved eating sort of more, from when we were younger we always ate quite healthily, and we ate We did have a vegetable garden when we were younger, but it did get destroyed by rabbits eventually, and we had our own chickens, and so that was something that was quite embedded. And I think just over the years, from being a teenager to kind of in my early 20s, that just started to grow and grow. I started reading loads of books and watching loads of documentaries and being around people, you know, from the good life. That was a massive part of where I got my inspiration from. Just
because you get inspirational chefs and people do foraging and all sorts of, you know, parts of working with the land in, you know, in a very holistic way. You don't, a lot of people that come there are
definitely
very inspirational, isn't it? So what when did you start growing your own food though? I mean, obviously you say you had a vegetable patch you're growing. When did you start doing the growing, or were you always doing?
No, I wasn't always doing. So 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, I was working in that. I went to work and live in London after I left uni in Edinburgh. And I was there for a year and a half. And then I quit my job, decided that I wanted to move home here to Wales. I booked myself straight onto a food sustainability course at a cooking school in Ireland. But I had, I had 3 months between, I was on a freelance contract, so I was able to quit my job and just say goodbye at the time. I was quite unhappy in my job at the time. So I basically quit my job on the Friday, and I think moved from London over the weekend and just came and based myself here.
So what were you doing before? What were you doing before, if you don't mind me asking? Is it?
I was in food and drinks marketing.
All right, yeah.
Not a million miles away, but I just realized at that stage that I wanted to be in the, you know, hands-on with the food rather than in the marketing side. I need a physical job. I'm not good at sitting still for too long. So yeah, in that 3 months between when I came to Wales and when I went to cooking school, it was actually this time of year. It was like February, March, April, and it was the perfect time to get your garden going. But obviously you miss out on all of that prep. So I just had these like manic few weeks where I had no idea what I was doing. I was watching YouTube videos about growing, but I had no experience. I'd spent a few days on a farm in Cornwall the autumn before, but other than that, absolutely no experience other than the things I'd seen and watched. So
I think that's the thing with gardening though, is that you can sort of have a go and get started with very little experience really at the end of the day. But the
best way to learn is just to do it.
Yeah. Because my grandfather was a very, very keen gardener. So we had a kitchen garden at home when I was growing up. My grandfather was the head gardener, as I used to tell my father. And we'd had their sweatshirts as well. My dad had under gardener on his, and my dad had head gardener. So it was always growing, you know, seasonal produce. But how have you developed your interest in seasonal growing and eating? Is that through like, well, all the things you just said?
How have I developed it?
Yes, yeah.
I think I've done a lot in the last couple of years. I've done a lot of reading, specifically in the first year, like out of London, I was just absorbing so much from other people and watching a lot and learning a lot through different avenues. And I think just trying as much as I can in every aspect of this kind of lifestyle that I've chosen to live. Like if I've had an interest in something, then I've followed through on it, and I've, like, you know, whether it's sourdough baking or foraging mushrooms or whatever it is, I've just got stuck in, hands on in it as soon as I can. And that's how I've really found that I've connected and learned. And each year when when a new season comes, I find myself being able to recognize more and more of what's coming out of the ground and exactly when it's coming up, and you know what trees are blossoming at what times, and what wild plants are out there that I can eat. Everything revolves around eating in my interest. So if I can eat it, then I'll probably get interested.
So why do you think growing and cooking seasonally is important?
I think it's a big question, but in my understanding and experience of it, I think it's important because it gives us a way of, you know, it's really mainstream to be really disconnected with where our food comes from, and that's not necessarily our fault. It's just the system that we live in. Supermarkets are the norm. That's why we get our food every day. So I think why it was important for me to grow my own veg, and why I hope that more and more people will slowly start to do it, is just having that connection, really understanding the value of food. You know, now when I go to an organic food shop or buy organic produce, I'm so much more happy to spend the money on it, because I understand the process that went into it. It's a hard graft. It doesn't come easy. And, you know, organic has become quite an elite term when it comes to our food, whereas it's really the most natural way of growing and producing food. So I think just, you know, I love cooking and I love eating, but what I love more is love eating and cooking with incredible produce that I know the story behind. It not only has so much more meaning, but it feels, when I'm eating it, just like I'm eating something better. And yeah,
because one of the businesses that is part of the Good Life Society is the Hawarden Farm Shop, and I've been to it, and it's spectacular. I think it's probably the best way to describe it. You know, so how involved are you with the farm shop?
Yeah, I'm pretty involved in the farm shop. In the cafe side of things, pretty heavily involved. So there's a cafe inside the farm shop. And there's
a butcher's there as well, isn't there? There's
butchers. We've actually just built a bakery inside the farm shop, which will be opening this week, so that's really exciting. I think what makes a farm shop great is all of this stuff that we're talking about, and I think it's, you know, it's actually really hard to have these strong values throughout a business. It takes, again, like a lot of work to really be using all the produce that you want to within your budget, really be, you know, creating these relationships with producers and suppliers when, you know, it might be more convenient to get all your produce and ingredients from one supplier that delivers every day. We're having to go through this, you know, big journey of navigating all these relationships when our orders come in, how we deal with our waste, all of that stuff. And I absolutely love being involved in the farm shop. It's really, you could
have 100 suppliers, but like maybe within ordinarily some organizations have 2 or 3 distributors, wouldn't you? You know,
yeah, exactly.
They bring in different, have a whole catalogue of different products. I worked for an organic soup company once upon a time, so I remember phoning up individual delis, you know, and selling the products, and then most companies didn't do it that way. They would go through Hawkwood or Hawkmore or various, you know, MJ Baker and things like that. These massive companies. But when I looked at Instagram this week, and I noticed that the trade bill is sort of, well, I'd say quietly passed this week. Really, I think there's so much news that is nothing to do with anything else other than COVID at the moment. That there was the trade bill that was quietly passed, and it was meaning that, you know, amongst other things, there's no legal safeguards for food safety, quality, hygiene and traceability. I mean, there were other things as well, but those are the 4 main, certainly were at the top of the list, you know. So, you know, obviously that's hugely disappointing, you know, as coming out of I assume a result of coming out of the European Union's food safety legislation. So without trying to get too depressed about that type of thing, you know, what can we do to ensure our food is safe?
Yeah, it's a really horrible topic that's going on at the moment, and I think it just like with all this I was saying about kind of being, you know, connecting with where your food comes from. I think it makes it's making it harder for us to be able to buy food that we can ensure that is from a good, you know, that has had a good journey to get to us, not only through the way that it was grown, what was put onto it to grow, and you know, if it's an animal, how it was bred and lived, and then the journey that it gets to us and how that happens and how long that is, and then, you know, getting to a supermarket, and you know, we can rely somewhat on where the label telling us where something comes from, but this stuff is going to become so much harder to understand. And it's, you know, a lot of us who are lucky enough to be able to make these decisions to go and shop independent and shop with smaller companies, then we can make that decision. Whether it's if you live in the countryside, going directly to a farm, which is possible, or shopping on, getting a vegetable box from Riverford or Abel and Cole or something like that, or just going to your high street shop, whether you're in a city or in a town or in a village. There are still independent butchers and bakers and veg shops, but it's not easy, because we don't all have the privilege to, not only the privilege to be able to afford that kind of food, but also the privilege to have had the education to understand what that this food bill is happening, because it's so I bet loads of people don't even know that this has happened and don't know that there are going to be these changes.
If I hadn't seen your Instagram posts, Xanthe, I knew things were going to change, or they were wanting to, because I know there was various talks with, the terrifying talks we're talking about with dealing with chlorinated chicken and things like that coming from America, and all the things that have been blocked and we've been saved from over the years, and we almost don't know how much we've been looked after.
And what's really horrible is that these farmers are put in a really tough position, because now our UK farmers are fighting to a race to the bottom, essentially, because their competition coming from abroad is now cheaper and quicker and all of that stuff. So the quality of our food here in the UK is going to go down and down and down as that.
But do you think that there's a potential to try and find a chink of light in this whole sort of scenario, that certain companies, obviously Riverford, I know that they've had the most incredible year. My friend supplies Riverford, and he was saying what an amazingly profitable year they've had because of the pandemic, because people are getting their food delivered, because for obvious reasons. But do you think that companies will see that this is a way of being, setting their own standards, and as long as we can trust them, I guess, but at the same time, assuming that they're already got a good reputation, now that's what they can trade on going forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think as it gets harder to find better quality food, I think these companies like Riverford and similar independent food companies will come higher up, and more people will start to support them, and they will become hopefully more mainstream, because people who are kind of knowledgeable or understand the very basics of what's going on will be more drawn to them.
Yeah. So what advice, with I guess one of the ways that you can protect your food is obviously that you grow it yourself. So what advice would you give to a novice about how to start growing your own food?
Just get started. Get started with anything you want to grow. I think there are some things that are easier to grow than others, but equally, you really want to just grow what you want to eat. Like I love growing lettuce, and a lot of people don't see that as much, but I love the taste of homegrown lettuce. It's like nothing else. And
that's a relatively easy one to start with as well, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's fast.
I assume. Rocket seems to, I don't know why Rocket seems to have some sort of price tag on it, because it grows like a weed, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
I know. Yeah, it really does. And yeah, lettuce is the same. I think radishes were the first thing I grew successfully, and they are a great thing to grow. I think tomatoes, like there's nothing like a homegrown tomato straight off the plant. But yeah, just get started, and you can get started in the smaller spaces. Like you can grow stuff in pots and small pots on your windowsill. It's just about getting started with the space that you have.
I usually have a semi-grown potato in my cupboard at most times, to be honest with you, so I can sometimes find a row potato that's been left behind, and then I chuck it in the garden.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I'm like, oh god, look at that. where's that been hiding? But you've documented on Instagram, about your struggles with your skin, with acne, no sign of it as far as I can see at this present time. Maybe it was when you were younger. But have you found
Yeah,
that
so
growing your own,
I've
we were younger, yeah. Did you find that did you have a change in diet to change that? Is that something that, you know, you're growing your own food, has that impacted like directly onto your health, do you think?
I got acne really randomly at quite a, I mean, I know I'm still young, I'm only 25, but I got it quite old. I got it when I was 22. Having had completely clear skin in my teens, I got it like overnight pretty much. And I spent far too long trying to heal it naturally, and obviously this works for some people. It didn't personally work for me. In fact, it made it way worse. This was a stage where I was living in London and I wasn't very happy mentally, and I think that had a big impact. So I've said this on Instagram and I will always be really open with it, like I did take medication. I went to mainstream dermatologist. I was on antibiotics and a stronger medication for my skin, and that did cure it. And I would never vouch personally for a specific diet working, because I think that kind of makes acne, the type of acne I had anyway, seem quite cosmetic when it is really like an
infection.
Yeah, it's an infection, and it should be treated like any other infection in our body. I think personally for me, what helped, you know, when you say like, did growing your own food help? I think that helped mentally, because I made this, you know, my acne was like a physical embodiment of the anxiety and lowness that I was feeling at the time. And obviously I would love to know what caused it, but I don't know. My dermatologist can't tell me. But I know that a big part of my acne, and it was then getting worse because I was so conscious of it, and you know, I was doing everything I could. Like I really did. I tried every single skin thing. I spent hundreds of pounds on serums and facials and all of that kind of thing. And then I hit rock bottom, and luckily my younger sister had been seeing an amazing dermatologist, so I was able to book an appointment with him. But yeah, it was definitely, it's not something to be taken lightly.
No. So in terms of diagnosis and it sort of improving when you found the right person, was that then relatively rapid?
It probably happened
didn't feel like it probably.
Yeah. Every time I would take a medication, I would like check in the mirror and see, oh, has it gone yet? Yeah. I wouldn't say that it was rapid. Probably over the course of 6 months did I really start seeing that it was getting better. And then I had to be on the medication for like another year after I finished that medication. But then when I came off the medication, then my body had like I don't know what it's called. There is a medical term, but it basically went crazy because I'd suddenly come off this really strong medication and I got this rash, like absolutely crazy rash all around here on my chin that looked like acne. And after having had clear skin for a year after the acne, I was like, went back into that horrible panic mode. Then I was back on antibiotics. Anyway, it's been a long time, but yeah, I think it's important to make that, you know, the clear understanding that it's not just a cosmetic infection. It's, you know, it's something that needs to be treated if it really is a bad acne.
Well, we talked a bit about, you know, like, you know, improving your mental health, you know, that you felt that the working in, you know, your previous job and working in London, you know, it's a challenging place. It's a great place to live. It's a challenging place to live, you know, but, you know, how does your work now benefit your mental health?
So in so many ways. I absolutely love being on my feet and being able to use my hands. So I feel like I'm really fulfilled in my job. You know, being a part of the family businesses means that I've been able to kind of be nosy where I wanted to be from the outset, and I had this amazing opportunity to really learn and grow with the support of these businesses. So I've been able to understand what exactly it is that makes me happy, and I'm so driven by my work. Whereas before I found it really, when I was working in London, I found it really hard to be motivated. Now I just I can't wait to wake up in the morning and get going. I think being outside is what really gets me. And if I have had a day on my laptop, I can feel myself getting a little bit in my head. So having the ability to step outside and go on a walk, or go and spend an hour in the garden, or be a bit physical, I think is really healthy for me personally.
Is that something that have you always been like that, very sort of needing to be outdoors? It's something that you've sort of recognized as you got older?
I think so. I mean, you haven't been to Glendy, have you?
Not to Glendy, no, not yet.
It's incredibly remote, and I grew up there with my 5 siblings, and I think we found our fun in just being outside and entertaining ourselves all day, every day. So I think it's very much deep inside me just to enjoy that. So yeah, I think it is something I think that's why I also love being at Edinburgh. I went to university in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is such a great city for that, because it has that, you can drive 20 minutes outside the centre of Edinburgh and you're in an amazing mountain, going on an amazing walk with nothing around you. So yeah, I think I've always been
it's the wilderness in Scotland is something to behold, really, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. I lived in Scotland for a while as well myself, but you've been sharing has been very important during lockdown, I think, for lots of people. I think about sharing, whether it's on Instagram and things like that, and you share a lot of your own recipes. How does that impact you?
Yeah, good. I love sharing. I think that's one of the best things about Instagram is the community that it creates, and being able to bounce off people on there. Obviously it has its low points that we're all aware of, but I think the great things about Instagram are that ability to share what you have, and also gain something from other people. So yeah, I actually have been quite slow on the recipe sharing at the moment, so I need to get back onto it. But
you've done a lot of it. But how do you develop a recipe though? Are they your own?
Yes, they're my own. I think about food 24/7. So I have notes on my phone where I'll be thinking about something that I want to cook, and I'll write it on my phone if I'm in the bath or if I'm about to go to bed, and then I'll come back to it. But I'm obviously very much guided by what is either in my garden, what I'm able to forage, or what's in season. I am vegetarian, so I only cook vegetarian food. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much guided by vegetables and the different things we can do with them at different times of the year, and what we need, and what our bodies are telling us to eat at that time of year. So yeah, that's what guides me in my cooking.
Well, I've got this Beatrix Bray who's just put a comment in the chat saying that she's in her first month of a season-long internship with a beautiful enterprise called the Free Company, just east of Edinburgh, just next to the Peatland Hills. So inspiring to be part of a young, conscious, energetic team aiming towards sustainable, beautiful food. So do you know that project?
I actually I went to see. So we know Angus and Charlie, who are the brothers that started it, and I went to see them right at the beginning of when they started the Free Company, and they just moved into this farmhouse, and they were telling us about all these ideas. And
so they're growers, and are they growers essentially?
They're growers, and what they started as is essentially like a supper club, and using their own produce and their own pork and all the kind of values that we're talking about now. But what they've done so impeccably, and they have all the values, and they're amazing with food, but they have just built this incredible set of buildings, and the furniture is beautiful, the setting is beautiful, but yeah, they're great. And they've actually come to Glendy to cook at our resident camps, twice. So yeah, they're a part of our
It sounds fantastic. Well, good luck with that, Beatrix. That sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I'm
But
jealous.
what other chefs do? Do you look at other chefs for inspiration for your cooking? Anyone particular?
100%. Oh, there are so many. I mean, I think there are lots of restaurants around that use Instagram to post about their food, which I always find quite inspiring. There are lots of bakers. Ravneet Gill, who I don't know if you've heard of, but she's an amazing pastry chef, and I love baking, and I find her very inspiring. Gil Mellor, he's a great chef and cooks very kind of similar food that I love the style of, lots of on the fire.
It says writing it down, right, Gil Mellor.
There are actually hundreds of chefs that I find incredibly inspiring. I work really closely with a chef called Damien Clisby, who's been helping us on a few of the projects here, and he actually moved from London to Wales.
Was it from Petersham Nurseries? Is he from Petersham Nurseries? Yeah.
And we met him through the festival, but so he's been coming and working with us, and I've just been learning so much from him, working closely with a chef of that knowledge and practice and experience is
but it all starts with good ingredients, doesn't it, basically?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all the chefs that I really am inspired by and find a lot of inspiration from are those chefs who are just very much ingredients led, and valuing ingredients.
So how does growing and cooking make you feel?
You can probably pick up by now that those things make me very
obvious
happy.
Question to
Yeah, I'm not like I'm probably a better cook than I am a grower, but I absolutely love growing food, and I love being, particularly in the first lockdown last year when we had that incredible weather.
Yeah,
I just spent days and days on end outside in the garden. There's such a reward in growing your own food, and that really every time you're like back-breaking, planting little seedlings into your beds, you have to think about the end result and how it will be worth it. So yeah, it's the best for me.
but do you make anything? Because obviously it's a digital craft festival, but essentially it's a community of makers. But do you make or do you have a particular craft that you enjoy using?
I got very into embroidery last year, but I haven't really
That'll do.
I haven't stuck with it so much.
What do you enjoy about it?
Well, I think, in all honesty, when I'm watching a film or TV, I often reach my phone and just scroll pointlessly on Instagram. So that was the main thing that I really enjoyed about it, and maybe I'll pick it back up.
That's entirely the right reason to use it. Embroidery is so mindful, and I darn. I've got a jumper that and Ruthie has seen it, and Merrin has seen it, sort of constantly developing holes, and well, it's got to the point now. I'm almost a bit worried it's going to start falling to pieces because there's nothing left, partly, of this jumper. It's all one big jumper. But that sort of a very simple activity is really, it's a bit like what you're describing when you talk about growing and gardening and things like that. It's very similar to the making process in terms of how you kind of lose yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's really like any. I think it's kind of like having any hobby. I mean, I guess that you and I are very lucky in the sense that like we are able to turn our hobbies into work in a way. But I think that's a really important part of having a hobby outside your work, or whether it is inside your work, is being able to have that moment where you're kind of switched off and you can't do anything else but focus on what you're doing. I think.
Yeah, I think phone use is another sort of pernicious kind of activity that is quite counterproductive. It's fantastic in some ways, but it's one of the areas I've been working on as much as all my health in general is about when to put the phone away.
Yes.
So we've got a message, Xanthe. We have heaps of turnips and celeriac to use up. Any particular recipes? I think so. I just jumped up there. Any particular recipes with these? Ooh, turnips and celeriac. That sounds nice.
They're like, I feel like turnips and celeriacs are probably two of the most disliked vegetables in the UK, and that's why everyone always ends up with such a glut of them. We actually have a celeriac burger on our menu at the moment at the pub, which we're doing takeaway from, and it's like a sort of thick slab of celeriac, and then it's really lightly deep fried, but it's really a great vegan burger. I feel like a lot of vegan burgers end up quite stodgy with lots of beans and pulses and grains in them, but I really like this celeriac. It's just, deeply deep fried in a really light batter, and it has that like chunkiness that you get from a normal meat burger, and
lots of flavor as well.
Yeah, I feel like celeriac needs a lot done to it to be super tasty. I don't love celeriac, but if you treat celeriac, I feel like same with turnips maybe, but if you kind of treat them as you would meat and give them quite a lot of like rich flavor, and they need a lot of help, I think, to be really tasty. And I think that you want to cook them in a way that they keep their form and don't
structure.
Get
because I would tend to sort of maybe roast them and then blend them and put them in a soup.
Yeah, soup. They always end, those kind of vegetables always end up in soup. But I think try and cook it in a way that you treat it like you would a piece of meat. I think, especially celeriac, that's a really nice way to cook it.
Oh, that'd be interesting. So we've got a message here from Merrin. She's saying, I've grown tiny bits and pieces over the years, not much at all, but I always find the winter season very disheartening and then struggle to get back into it in the summer. What advice would you give to someone wanting to grow over the winter to keep spirits up?
I need to give myself this advice because I'm not a good winter grower either. I think I get so excited by the summer season that I kind of forget you have to really plan everything so far in advance. But I think using the time in spring, specifically now, maybe a little bit earlier, but now, because we're talking about now, I think not only do your planning for summer growing, but at the same time be doing your planning for winter growing, so that you can, write in your calendar. There are some winter plants that we'll be planting now, but equally in August, where you've got so much to do and there's so much going on in the garden, then use that time to start growing for the winter. But I only really grew this year Jerusalem artichokes, which I have still got hundreds too many of, and Cavolo Nero, and they're good, but you need a little bit more excitement in winter. So I think being really prepared, and it's really easy to be prepared for summer growing in spring, because I'm in a better mood this week than I've been in weeks, because it's the beginning of spring and there's so much, the leaves are coming back on the trees and there's so much life coming back in.
Because is Cavolo Nero quite easy to grow, would you say?
Yeah.
As a green?
I would say just in the winter, stick to, obviously we've got much more abundance in the summer. I'd say stick to 3 or 4 things that you can grow a lot of and rely on. Easy things like Jerusalem artichokes are really easy to grow. You literally put them in the ground in March and they'll produce amazing flowers in the summer, and then they'll be ready to dig up in the winter. Like, there's nothing, you don't need to do anything to them, they just grow. So they're a great winter one. And then obviously something like Brussels sprouts, which we would be planting now, so you can just get them in while you're getting the rest of your summer veg in. But yeah, it's just about kind of forcing yourself into it and being a little bit organized. But I'm not the best at winter growing either.
So what are you working on at the moment? Obviously, I'm not sure what the state of play is in Wales now. All my family are in Wales, and I know they were the rules have been eased very slowly there, though quickly in some ways. You can get your haircuts. We're all very jealous in England. You can get your haircut.
Yeah, I
But,
need to get my friend that actually. I've been cutting
you
it
look
myself.
great. You look great. But what are you working on or working towards at the moment?
Well,
You mentioned the bakery, didn't you? You mentioned that. That's exciting. Oh,
yeah. So our farm shop's been shut since the latest lockdown. So we're reopening that on Wednesday. So that's really exciting to get some life back into the place.
he's gonna bark, I think. My dog's gonna bark in a second. Sorry, just warning.
Yeah, getting the rest of my summer plant. I'm actually going to do some this afternoon, but getting the rest of my summer planting done, which is really exciting. I'm chicken guarding my whole garden because this is the first summer I'll have had chickens, and they've actually been in lockdown, and their lockdown ends on Wednesday, so they'll be ravaging my whole garden up. So
Yeah. Do you have you kept chickens before?
Not myself, but we always had chickens growing up.
Yeah, no, because we did. I remember my dad did, but we used to lose so many to foxes. It's
Yeah,
even if they get in at night, or they used to get into the thing. We'd take them in. Obviously, they would go in. When I say we, I didn't do any of it. My dad. I mean, we as a family, but I think my dad eventually stopped buying them. We just lost so many, to foxes.
We definitely had that growing up. I don't know if that's going to happen. It probably will, and I'm going to have to be ready for it as a chicken mum. But
yeah. It's just make sure there's no, they make sure they don't get in because do you take them in every night? Will you be taking them in every night? I suppose.
Yeah. So they actually, my chicken coop is quite high tech. So I have this electric little door, and I'd set a timer on it, and then it opens and closes at when the sun rises and when it sets. So yeah, it's quite
well, I'm not trying to be the harbinger of doom, but I just hope that's the way to do it. Make sure they're all tucked up safely. Probably a rubbish chicken coop with holes in it and things like that. But, what are you hoping for the future then, Xanthe? Where are things going for you? You're still incredibly young. You've got all these incredible projects. It's so exciting.
I'm not 100% sure like what my ultimate aim is. I think I've definitely found what makes me happy and what I get excited by. So I think I'll be sticking in this area for a while, but whether I would want to go on and have like a proper working farm where I host people and host workshops and host dinners and all of that, I don't know. Or I don't know. I think I just what I really want to do is just keep getting better at what I'm doing and keep trying to spread a positive word about food, and I love cooking for people, so I want to keep doing that. And obviously I haven't been able to cook for many people except my family over the last year, so I'm really looking forward to hosting some more supper clubs.
Because is that knuckle? Because I remember I found something to do with knuckle. What is knuckle then? Is that still on? Is that sort of slightly in hibernation because of?
It's in hibernation, yeah. So my boyfriend Hugo and I 2 years ago started a supper club company in London while I was still kind of based there a bit more, obviously pre-lockdown. And we did some great events. The idea was, the slogan was eat your veg, so it was like again similar values. We challenged all the chefs to cook vegetarian menus. I did some of the cooking. We had some really great chefs do the cooking, like Olia Hercules and Alex Healy Hutchinson, who runs 26 Grains in Stony Street. We actually had really exciting lineup of chefs doing 10 events at the Ace Hotel, which is now also closed. That was supposed to start in March last year and go on once a month for the rest of the year, but obviously we didn't even get to do one. So so hopefully we'll restart that and have people here. I did a feast at the Good Life the last year that we had in the greenhouse, and it's such a great space to
that I saw that. I think I missed out on all the feasts because they get sold out really quickly, but I love that idea, and you've got lovely setting there. You've got lovely ideas, Xanthe. It's been absolutely lovely talking to you today. And I think if anyone else has got any more questions, this is the time to put them in the chat. But it's great to talk to you. Eating is certainly a very important part of my life. I do love food, and because I do run a food festival as well, called Nourish, which is usually on in September. But I'm not. I've had to rejig everything. So our main event now, the Craft Festival in Bovey Tracy, is now in September instead. So, and Meredith, do you have any favourite recipe to cook at the moment? Yeah, have you got a go-to? What's your go-to recipe?
At the moment, what do I love cooking at the moment? I have so many eggs because I usually sell them in the farm shop, but my chickens lay about 18 eggs a day, and I have nowhere to put them. So a lot of what I cook is.
I mean, I love an egg, but God.
I have to actually put a limit to how many I eat a day. But baked eggs are, I'm actually going to make some in a minute for my lunch. So you can, something I make often is a similar kind of a tomato based, which I make a homemade baked beans with as well. But you basically just fry an onion and a shallot with some herbs, a bay leaf and some rosemary and thyme, and then add a thing of tinned tomatoes, maybe some red wine, maybe some vinegar of some sort, maybe some honey, something to sweeten it a little bit, and then literally just whack it in the oven, make some little holes and whack it in the oven with the eggs in it for about 5 minutes until they're cooked.
Awesome.
Yeah,
with a bit of sourdough on the side, maybe, is it?
Yeah, always.
always. Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Xanthe. It's been absolutely delightful talking to you. Thank you for agreeing to come and talk at the Digital Craft Festival. It's nice to always want to try and add different elements, which is, well, our elements are very similar to what you do in your festivals all the time. We're more about the making, but as we go along, I'm more about the feeling, about the feelings that we have about things and how we manage our physical and mental well-being. So thanks for coming today, Xanthe. I think that's enough for us for now, and I'd hopefully catch up with you in real life one of these days. And thanks for joining us today. And thank you everyone for coming today to talk about living with the seasons. And Xanthe, try leeks and cabbage fried with garlic with eggs cracked into it at the very end.
Ooh, that sounds good. Maybe I'll have that for lunch.
Yes, I do oven bake egg and chips. I mean, honestly, what is that? Well, you make potato eggs and wedges, and then make little holes, and then crack loads of eggs in and put it in. It's like school dinners, but really, really good.
Right.
Really nice.
Yeah,
anyway.
you want to eat simple food at the end of the day, so that's just like the best.
And in one thing, whoosh, into the oven. Exactly. Anyway, lovely to talk to you, and thank you very much for joining us today. Cheerio, bye-bye.
Bye.